throb never. I mean hard throb forever.
Just having some thoughts real quick. I want to talk about this for a minute real fast. I'm wondering if American blacks ever benefited economically from the World Trade Centers. Have American blacks ever directly benefited from World Trade Centers? Now, on the surface, that might seem like a dumb question, but I'll elaborate as to why I'm bringing this up. And I'm bringing it up because in elementary, middle, high school, and even college, with the world, well, I was going to say, being from the Northeast, being from Ohio, but, later, moving down to Texas or whatever. But the majority of, my life, I've lived in the Northeast, particularly in Ohio. So being in school, no matter if it was high school or college, they always talk to you about finding out what you wanted to do career wise, figuring it out and that whole deal. And I'm bringing this up because they never mentioned anything about doing business through world trade. And then when I further looked into it, on the surface, it seemed like, there's a lot of black people involved in business through world trade, government contract or whatever. But once you really look at it, it was once again, from what I see. Now, I could be wrong. And this is why I'm posting this video. But from what I've seen, it was primarily immigrants who had direct access and know-how as to how to navigate the system of the World Trade Centers. Now, down here in Texas, it's the same thing. It's mainly immigrants who are involved with World Trade Centers and setting up business and the whole deal. And then I got to thinking like, well, yeah, maybe that makes sense. Maybe that's why they bring or allow so many immigrants to come here and set up shop, because then they have direct access to goods and services, but primarily, physical goods from overseas and other countries. Even if they're, within the Western Hemisphere, they have a direct pipeline to get to these materials, whether it be, fruits, vegetables, textiles, things of that nature. But most American blacks will tell you, we didn't know nothing about that. The most thing that we knew was, in the words of Biggie, child of immigrant parents, but beloved to us. Time to get paid and blow up like the world trade. Interesting. An interesting choice of words. Time to get paid and blank blank like the world trade. I find it real funny that people who were historically enslaved and oppressed and held back by specific laws and legislations that were put in place to make sure that they could not advance economically, that when they started to have access to education resources about things in their primary education, they were never prepped or prepared to do anything through world trade. And so it just prompted me to make this post as to, have American blacks ever really directly, monetarily benefited from World Trade Centers in any of the states that they're in? And I'm starting to see, from my perspective, that the answer is no. Everybody else did, but we didn't. But now that we've woken up and started to see what's really going on, through delineation and saying, okay, immigrant populations or immigrant ethnic groups, we don't have a problem with y'all, but now we got to start looking out for self. Now that we see this, and then we're saying, okay, now with this, we got to make sure that we're getting in businesses for ourselves. We've always had that, but we didn't necessarily know the direct avenues to go to get it off the ground. And if we did get it off the ground, excuse me, if we did get it off the ground, then we had to deal with situations of like Black Wall Street and, the modern times of, so much bureaucratic red tape and licensing fees and all that type of stuff to be able to have a business, let alone securing the capital for it. But once we figure it out, all of a sudden, World Trade Center activities and, getting involved with the World Trade, it's more difficult. And, we lost one World Trade in New York City. And it just makes me wonder what all this was really about. It's because what I know is, as many Black people can tell you, we ain't know nothing about dealing with world trade as far as business. But then we sit on the inside looking out and looking at people who come in and appear to be Black. And we're like, well, damn, shit, if they can do it, then I should be able to do it. But you don't understand, like, you're not from overseas, so you're not a direct pipeline to these places to get the things and bring back to the Americas. You trying to figure out something to make here and hope that the world outside will buy what it is that you want to sell, which is primarily why we've been locked in to music and athletics and, some other things that, that we used to dominate, but now, due to them letting everybody hear and them learning our culture, we don't even have that to sell anymore to the outside world. And so for those of y'all that listen, to my channel, y'all know I don't go in too in depth on a lot of the topics that I bring up. Like I said before, it's just for me to spark the conversation on these concepts. My channel ain't monetized. When it gets monetized, then I'll start breaking it down. But I'm not about to be doing live streams. I don't have enough subscribers and stuff. Yeah, I'm not gonna be live streaming for 10 to 40 people. So for those of you with the larger platforms, if y'all hear this, these are the types of conversations that we need to have. Because like I said, from my perspective, I don't think that we've ever directly monetarily benefited from involvement, or if enough of us were even involved in World Trade Center activities. Like I said, on the surface, it may appear that we are, but then when you look further into it, you'll see that most of these people are immigrants. And if they learn your culture and learn how to talk like you, you're going to have a hard time, identifying if they really are you. You know what I'm saying? They could say that they are, you're not really going to know. Unless you observe the behaviors and you become more cognizant of who they are, or unless they just tell you. Which is, always been kind of a weird thing to me, that they would be amongst us and not directly say to us that well, nah, man, we Black, but I'm Jamaican, you know what I'm saying? Or I'm Haitian, or I'm Cuban, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to figure out what the hiding and for those who did do it, you know what I'm saying? Not all of them, but for those that are amongst American Blacks and they hide what their actual ethnicity is, man, it just raises a whole lot of questions. And I'm a bit jaded that with all the college prep and, career days and stuff at school, they never mention to at least the American Blacks where I'm from anything about doing business through world trade. And if y'all remember in the 90s and the early 2000s and all that, we had all those clothing brands and everything come out, and it was American blacks who got into it, but they were linked in directly through immigrants, whether they were Asian immigrants, European immigrants, African immigrants, whatever immigrants. But it wasn't directly us. We had to go through an immigrant middleman to tap into the world trade. You see? So like I said, I'm a bit jaded about this because when they were talking to us about business and college prep, everything for us was to go and get a high level degree to work for somebody else, whether it was, computer technology, whether it was, being a doctor, a nurse, or even the skilled trades, carpentry, plumbing, that type of thing. Some people went to school for like fashion design and stuff like that. But I'm saying you didn't really need any of that stuff. Like all you needed was to be knowledgeable about where to get started. And it was never explained to us. I find that problematic. And especially for an ethnic group of people to come off of being directly involved in textile forcefully through government legislative law, being forced to pick cotton, forced to, whether y'all know it or not, pick rice, forced to pick rice and sugar cane and fruits and vegetables and even tobacco. You know what I'm saying? Like my family picked cotton and tobacco in Tennessee. So to come from a lineage of people that were directly the vehicle that whites used to gain mass amounts of wealth, and then to be locked out of it by them allowing immigrants from, no matter the phenotype, to come in and partake fully in World Trade Center business. But we were locked out and had no knowledge of it primarily. This is another case that can be used as grounds for reparations, man. Like there's no way around this thing. When you really sit down and start looking at this, you have to. There's no way that you cannot come to the conclusion, like, okay, man, if this is really true, that these people were deliberately, steered away from knowing about these types of things. Yeah, man, there's some type of compensation that needs to be done. Because what happens is you can give people, a worthless or a false information about what it is that they're supposed to do to, live their lives economically stable. You can give them information that's worthless to them, and they'll spend all of their life not knowing why they never reached a level of economic stability and attainment. And that's criminal to me. I'll leave it on that note. So just to conclude it out again with, have American blacks ever benefited directly, monetarily, economically, from doing business through World Trade Centers? Were we ever even allowed in on a majority level? Or were we predominantly, systematically locked out, and by proxy being locked out because there were immigrant ethnic groups that were phenotypically black who had direct pipeline and access to resources from other countries? These people were given priority over us to do business through World Trade Center. Think about that. I'm out.
Heart throb never. Heart throb forever.